Well, hello again. It's a new school year, and so we begin a new season of Conversations with the Dean. And I'm delighted today to welcome Dr. Ming Wang, our friend, to the Lipscomb campus. Dr. Wang is an incredible individual. He is not only an accomplished, world-renowned cataract and LASIK surgeon, but Ming, you're also a laser physicist, you're a researcher, an inventor, an entrepreneur, a teacher, a writer, a champion ballroom dancer, an accomplished violinist, and a beloved philanthropist. And most important to me, you're a Christian. So thank you for coming to Lipscomb today.
Thank you, Dean Stevens.
We're delighted to have you. Let me start in China. You're a native of China. You grew up in China. You left China under difficult circumstances. I believe at the age of 14 you had to leave school, in fact, due to the Cultural Revolution. Tell me a little bit about your early life.
You know, very often, Dean Stevens, I get a question these days, what drives you to work so hard, Ming? And it's because of the experience growing up in a circumstance when we had nothing. During the Cultural Revolution or Cultural Holocaust between 1966 to 1976, the communist government decided the best way to keep on dictating is to keep people ignorant. And the way to keep people ignorant is to destroy the educational process of its young people. Sounds almost, impossible. How could that happen in the modern era? In a big country like that, it did happen. For 10 years, young people were deported to poor part of the country and condemned of a lifetime of poverty and hard labor. So I called that during the Cultural Revolution. So at age 14, I was told that if I had gone to senior high school, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade, I would be deported and would be earning $1 a month for the rest of my life and would have zero chance to go to college. So I had to my parents had to take me out of the school, and I did not continue the educational process after junior high to try to avoid deportation and try everything possible to not to suffer that devastating fate of deportation.
Now, you came from a very accomplished family. Your mother and father both, I believe, were highly educated. They were doctors. In fact, I believe one of your grandparents might have been a doctor. Yes. So education was a characteristic that was valued in your family. But at age 14, you had to leave school due to the Cultural Revolution. How did you proceed to continue your education at a later point in your life?
You know, as you could imagine, Dean Stevens, at age 14, where a young teenager should be looking for a life of possibility and bright future, and I had to have my education process cut short abruptly as such. So I was in distraught and very depressed. And one way to avoid deportation is to play a music instrument, because communist government at that time still had propaganda troops, so they're song and dancers. So if you have music talent, they may allow you to stay in the city and avoid deportation. So I remember I picked up this Chinese violin, erhu, E-R-H-U, to play, not because of the love of music, but for the sheer need to survive. I remember I played this piece written by a blind artist, Bing, which described a beautiful scenery of evening, pond, the two springs converges, reflecting the image of moon. It is beautiful because not only it described the natural beauty, but also it was imagined beauty, because he could not see. And so the song, with a touch of melancholy, is very soulful and beautiful. Now I realize why I resonated at age 14 with the feeling of this blind artist, because he could not see physically. I could not see mentally any future in my life.
So you took up the violin, and that was done in an attempt to prevent your deportation to the rural countryside. How did you manage then to re-enter school?
The attempt to avoid deportation through music playing was not successful. Communist government realized that many youth were learning music for that reason, so they put an end to my music learning. So then my parents smuggled me into their medical school they were teaching to try to have me spend some worthwhile times learning medicine while avoid the deportation. I remember I asked my father, I said, why should I be studying when I have no chance of becoming a doctor? And my father said, and to this day I still remember, he said, knowledge will always be good, knowledge will always be useful. And, but then communist government discovered, I was hiding out in medical school and I was expelled, so I could not continue learning just even for the sake of knowledge. And then Cultural Revolution ended, 1976, and the college entrance examination resumed. And all of a sudden it was possible to go to college again. So I had to cover the curriculum of 3 years of senior high school and try to score among the top 1 or 2% of the graduating class, 12th grade, in order to get to college. My father actually talked to many teachers, chemistry, biology, physics, and said that, you tutor our 14, 15-year-old son, and I will take care of you, for your family, medically. So I was drilled 15, 18 hours a day. And 2 months later, I was lucky enough to get into college. And it was during my junior year, I met a visiting American professor. And I knew that there was my only one chance to come to America, to be free. So I asked him, the visiting American professor, a question. And I did not understand what he was saying because I had very limited command of English. But he was impressed by my persistence and asked him that question. So with his help, 1982, with $50 borrowed from him, and with one-way airplane ticket, I was dropped at National Airport, Washington, D.C.
And that's how you arrived in America. Now, before we follow you to America and what transpired after that, let me ask you one more question about your early life in China. There was a New York Times best-selling book a couple of years ago about tiger moms. Did you have a tiger mom?
Yeah, I have tiger parents.
They were inspirational
Yeah.
in
Yes.
your desire to be educated and your commitment to that.
Yes.
So why is that culture so prevalent in China, and we struggle so much in this country to inspire our children to have that same love of learning?
I think this has to do with our human nature. That, as they say, it takes a good man who doesn't have much to work hard, but it takes a great man who already has something to continue work hard. So I think material wealth and having things around, it is a detriment. It is detrimental to the process of learning. A human being usually gets energized, gets inspired to work hard when a human being is at a state with a deprived state. And but in this country, students are very lucky. God has blessed this land, this country, with people with opportunities, and with lots of natural resources. But so it is even harder to encourage students in this country to continue learn. But I would say maybe one way is, as Mark Twain used to say, that in his characteristic humorous manner, he said, traveling is lethal to prejudice. So I think encourage students to travel, to experience, to at least get some sense what 2/3 of the world, how those students are still living, and how lack of opportunity they still.
Well, we do that, of course. We take our students to China each year, and in fact, I've been very fortunate as the dean here to go with our students for the last 2.5 years. In fact, I've spent 10 weeks in China with our students cumulatively over the last 2.5 years. And one of the things that we've noticed and learned on those trips is the commitment to education that the Chinese people have. It's not unusual at all for a Chinese student to have a second master's degree or even a third master's degree. We don't have that mentality here. And I'm very concerned about that for the 21st century. I think that puts us at a competitive disadvantage. Do you agree?
Yes, absolutely. And not only lack of knowledge, but also the lack of realization of lack of knowledge. Every year in the students' competitions of industrialized world, the top 30 industrialized world in math, physics, biology, American students has consistently scored in the lower end, except in one category, confidence, where American students have consistently scored first. So I think it's important to not only to learn, but also realize that, students to realize that we don't know much, we need to learn. And it's hard in the affluent society, in a society with, well provided, to continue to have the desire and inspiration to learn.
Well, let's return to your journey. Let's go back now to the moment you arrived in the United States. Mm-hmm. I think you said you had $50 in your pocket. You arrived at National Airport to do what? What was your purpose in coming here?
I wanted to study. At age 14, I was playing my violin, Chinese violin, because I was depressed because I was not allowed to study. I came to America to study. And I felt that I was very blessed because I was given the opportunity to go into school to learn and eventually to study medicine. Some of the things that I tried to do in China, I could not. So I first was enrolled in graduate school in physics, and I got my doctoral degree in laser physics, finished my postdoctoral training at MIT. Then I decided I want to continue my educational process, so I got my second doctoral degree, this time in medicine at Harvard Medical School.
So you have a very unique educational background. I don't know that I've ever met anyone else who had 2 doctoral degrees, much less one from Harvard and another postdoctoral degree from MIT. While you were at Harvard, I think you fell in love with ballroom dancing. Tell me about how that happened.
It was funny, Dean Stevens, that in the first week of Harvard times that we heard about many jokes about Harvard students being nerds. So a bunch of students got together. We wanted to say, well, we want to do something unexpected of the nerdy Harvard students. So we said we're going to do ballroom dancing. But the first time we participated in collegiate competition, Harvard University team was dead last. But we want to change that. Just like one applies oneself hard for chemistry, biology, physics, we apply ourselves very hard to the study of ballroom dancing. We raise funds and we partition the school to give us opportunities and space and encourage students to participate. And we have very ambitious goals to win U.S. national championship. And the year I graduated from Harvard Medical School, we did win the U.S. collegiate national championship.
And I was very interested, Ming, as I read some of your background, to read about your comments about how the ballroom dancing informs and assists you in your role as an eye surgeon today. Tell me about why that's the case.
I think, Stevens, that many people realize the benefit of ballroom dancing, enjoying music, and it is physical exercise. But it is the third, which I think is the most important dimension of ballroom dancing, is in order to dance well with another human being, you have to be aware of that human being, you have to be connected, and you have to be sensitive. Because no matter how great one is by oneself, if you cannot move together with another human being, you cannot do well in ballroom dancing. So that sensitivity, awareness, and the sense of connection does help me today as a doctor, because with all the technologies we have here, in a way it's good, give us more capabilities of diagnosis and treatment, but at the same time, technology can also insulate or increase the distance between doctors and the patients. Mm-hmm. So I feel that we need to reconnect to our patients, spend more time, and try to feel what they feel, try to listen what they say, and try to be emotionally connected. And I learned that dimension of emotional connection from ballroom dancing. And I think learning to ballroom dance does help me to become a better doctor.
Mm-hmm. So you decided to specialize in the eye.
Mm-hmm.
You became an ophthalmologic surgeon. And I assume your background in physics, the physics of light and dimensions and angles, must have made a big difference in your ability to be a world-renowned surgeon of the eye, and specifically when LASIK surgery came into being, you became a specialist in that and really a leader in that field. How did you develop your interest in the eye?
When I initially came to America, as I said, I studied laser physics and I studied medicine, and for many, many years, I was wondering, what God put me through this long process, and what's the purpose of all learning the medicine and the technology. And it took me 31 years of schooling, including freshman, and starting from college freshman, that will be like 20 years when I finished. So 20 years of schooling since freshman college, that was a long process. I didn't realize at the time what was the purpose and how could I really combine the two, medicine and technology. Now I realize that God's intention is to, because today's medicine is characterized by the combination of high tech and medicine. So only by mastering the high tech technology aspect can a doctor truly deliver the best quality of care. So I feel very fortunate I can combine my laser physics doctoral degree and medicine so I can provide best care for my patient.
You've become an inventor. I think you've developed several new techniques in LASIK surgery and perhaps cataract surgery. You've used your skills as a surgeon to become a philanthropist. You created the eyeball, EYE ball, in order to raise money for your foundation. Tell me what the foundation does and how you've used your philanthropy to complement your career as a surgeon.
For the longest time I've been thinking, how can I bring the cause of sight restoration to help the poor, to help those who are blind, outside the four walls of clinic and hospital, engage a bigger segment of society. And because vision is not just a matter of numbers, check 20, 40, 20, 30. The vision is visceral, it's human experience. It's an indispensable part of a human experience. So I thought maybe the best way is to create an event, to form a foundation to help those poor, who cannot afford medical treatment, but at the same time create an event which appeal to the public. And the event itself, the very essence of the event, reflects the appreciation of sight. So I then realized that very few things is as beautiful, as eloquent, and elegant, and just disciplined, and as ballroom dancing. So I thought, well, maybe that's the way to create a beautiful classical ballroom gala, and where people see Viennese waltz and foxtrot and black tie and ball gowns. But more importantly, through the appreciation of beauty of ballroom dancing, to remind us how precious God's given gift to us sight is, and how much we need to help those who have lost their gift. So that's the idea behind the eyeball.
And that event is an annual event. I think it's in the fall of each year, in October. My wife and I have attended that event for the last several years, and we've been honored to be asked and honored to be there. And I'm always amazed each year when we go at the number of people who honor you with their attendance and their support of your foundation. Last year, I think you had perhaps almost 1,000 people who were there. So it's really quite an event. Thank you for your commitment to do that. Let's return to your amazing life. I mentioned in our introductory comments that you were an entrepreneur. So you have reconnected with your native land in China, and you've become quite a business person. Tell me about that.
China has gone through lots of changes. Fortunately, in the last 25, 30 years, China has realized that it needs to catch with the rest of the world. And China has developed explosive economically. And at the same time, just like as a dean of a school, you know that it is easier to build a building, but it is harder to house that building, in that building, with top-minded scientists. So the physical construction of the thing is easier, but the mental, the software part is harder. It would take longer. So I feel that as a Chinese American, someone who grew up in China and have been blessed in coming here and got the opportunity for education and learning, I want to help China grow in the dimension of knowledge and the training of doctors and nurses, and it's the software part of it. So I founded the Tennessee Chinese Chamber of Commerce to help the dialogue between Chinese and American businessmen and women, and also I helped build a large private hospital group in China. But the Chamber's main mission, being a Tennessee Chinese Chamber of Commerce, is to help Tennessee businesses learn how to interact with Chinese businessmen and women, because the number one priority of all business today is how to sell. And the number one thing that in the list of how to sell is to understand your customers. Well, Chinese are studying Americans and exporting all these goods here. We are not doing as good job going the other way. So in order to export to a country like China, which is becoming the world's largest market this year, it has gone from largest consumer to the largest producer, manufacturer to largest consumer this year. It is such a wonderful golden opportunity for us to export to China what we have to offer. In that process, the number one step is to understand our customers. That means to understand the Chinese culture, history, and people.
So how does one become a member of the Tennessee Chinese Chamber of Commerce?
They can contact the chamber, Tennessee Chinese Chamber, and tccc.us, and they can come to attend the every other month the educational forum. And last forum was about education. Mayor Cao Ding came to speak, and we have a forum before that about import-export, and there's a forum about before that about healthcare. We're going to have 2 more forums coming up very soon. One is about the learning of Chinese language, and one is about the contrast between East and West medicine.
Now, Ming, you were very modest a moment ago when you said you built a hospital. The truth is you've built a chain of hospitals. So tell me about your business in China, because as I understand it, it's one of the leading hospital companies in China. You are a public company, I believe, in China. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, tell me about that.
It was very interesting. 10 years ago, Communist government opened a little crack of door and began to allow private hospital building. And me and together with 4 other friends, 5 of us, and we started a venture of building China's first chain of private eye hospitals. So 10 years later, we have 35 hospitals now. We are the largest private eye hospital group in China. We are what they call HCA of China. And we hold about 10% of China's eye care market. Through this hospital group, and I was able to educate, teach the physicians the knowledge of 21st century medicine. We were able to introduce to China the latest technologies, and we're able to also help reduce the incidence of blindness in the rural and poor part of China through our charity programs. About 20% of our surgeries performed at our eye hospital in China are charity cases.
And I was very privileged a couple of years ago to visit your hospital in Shanghai, which is amazing. It's every bit the equivalent of any hospital I've ever visited in the United States. So it's well equipped, well located, and it was very busy the day I was there. I was also honored to be asked to go to dinner that evening. My wife and I went to dinner with one of your physicians, and we were introduced to certain aspects of Chinese cuisine which were new to us, things like beetles and eel and things like that. So we had quite a day of it and a very nice evening, and thank you for that. We were delighted to visit your hospital in Shanghai. Let me close by asking you about your faith. There's nothing in your background that would have predicted that you would be a Christian. You're Chinese. You went to major American universities that aren't exactly considered to be hotbeds for evangelism. How did you come to be a Christian? How did that faith come about?
Dean Stevens, I was not born one. I was born as an atheist. 80% of Chinese today are atheists. I thought science offers all the solutions to our lives, and I still believe it does to a large part. But while studying science, medicine in this country, I found that interestingly, the more I studied, more unknowns I identified, more unanswered questions I found. So then I was influenced to the path of Christianity by a professor, a pediatric professor actually, who I respect a lot scientifically. And he showed me, he said, one day he said, Ming, can you imagine the power of random scrabble piece of metal can assemble itself into a car? I said, no. He said, how about human brain? So that really kind of opened up the window for me to be open-minded, to explore why things are, and beyond just science. So I came to know Jesus Christ not because I was born as a Christian, but also, but mainly because I did not find the answer that I was seeking for in life. And through learning of science, through the realization of the limitation of science, and I realized there's a bigger purpose and answers to some of those questions I was seeking. So I became Christian through the path of seeking for answers for life. And today I feel very fortunate that I'm a Christian and I can understand lots of things in life, and I can apply my Christian principles to many things I do, and I can continue to utilize science, but I believe that it is the combination, not the opposition, but combination of faith and science that truly can advance the quality of human lives. And for example, in China, that we know that people are living better, but spiritually they have more of emptiness because of the collapse of communist ideology. So people need more, the new, just the moral code of conduct and behavior. So we have started a China Bible project to bring to China 10,000 Bibles, duly translated English and Chinese, to go into China, because 95% Chinese citizens are not Christians. So this is a unprecedented, perhaps once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to recruit for God's kingdom, quarter of human population.
For our students who may struggle with reconciling the theories of evolution with the biblical account of creation, how did you come to reconcile that in your mind as a scientist, but also as a Christian?
Yeah, it's a very, very important question. And through my scientific research, through work, for example, one time we were conducting research among fetal wound healing, try to understand how little baby healing can help adult eye healing from trauma injury. In the process, we realized that there was a clash between faith and science. On one hand, if you don't do research on fetal wound healing, you will not be able to advance science. And on the other hand, you cannot do it without moral guidance and principles, because little baby is a human being. You cannot injure any part of the baby for the sake of research. So what do you do? Like stem cell research today, and like the conflict between creation and evolution. But I always believe that God has created this world is without contradiction. It may appear to be contradictory to us. That's because we don't know better. So what God wants us to do is continue to seek, continue to be persistent, and truly believe there is an answer. In the case of fetal wound healing, we identified that each baby has this membrane called the amnion membrane. It's surrounded around the baby, and it's discarded after birth. But it was connected to the baby before birth. So we started researching on the amnion membrane, transplanting adult eyes, and we found it indeed can help adult wound healing to reduce scarring and reduce blindness. So that's an example. In the case of fetal wound healing, God does want us to continue research, but He wants us to do it in the right way. In this case, use amnion membrane, but don't touch any part of the baby. Continue the advancement of fetal wound healing research and medicine, but without stepping out of our moral and ethical and faith boundaries.
Ming, it's been a delight to have you here today. You're a true friend, and thank you for joining us today, and thank you for your life. It's such an inspiration to me personally, as well as I'm sure to our students and our friends of the university. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dean Stevens.
Our guest today has been Dr. Ming Wang, who is a eye surgeon. He's an entrepreneur. He's a teacher, a researcher, quite an amazing fellow, and we're delighted to have had him. We look forward to seeing you again soon on another episode of Conversations with the Dean. Thank you for joining us. See you soon.